not shut up and dribble.
The champ is here! I must be the greatest! The champ is here!
I'm going to continue to stand with the people.
The champ is here!
I will not lose.
I'm a bad man! I shook up the world!
Yes, welcome. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with we. My name is EJ, and I got my man,
MH.
Yes, he is the DB of the show, and we're Black in Sports, giving a voice to the culture that won't shut up and dribble. Here, interviewing the best professionals in the game and in the boardroom, covering it all, laughing it all while providing a platform to be heard. So you know what time it is, man. We got to welcome him, and we got to give him a proper welcome. So, sometimes I just want to, when I see him, I want to say OH and see if he gives me that response, IO. But, Ohio raised him, but Texas pays him, all right? So he went from ticketing to tech. I have to say that correctly. He went from ticketing to tech, and now the founder of HTX, Sports Tech. A lot of words I can trip you up there, but please clap it up for my man Nate Thompson. That boy good, man. Hey, so thanks for being on the show, man, and just want to get right to it, man. Just seeing the trends and how you move, and it's great. Sometimes just to watch people in the evolution. But before we get real deep into it, we always ask our guests for a shoot your shot moment, right? So this is where you went for it all, bet on it all. You could have lost, learned a lesson, or you could have had an opportunity for just a really big win. So if you could, man, just give us a shoot your shot moment anytime in your career, lifespan, or just something you want to share with the audience.
Yeah, we'll probably get into it a little bit later, but this time last year, leaving the job with the mayor's office with the city of Houston and going all in on HTX, that was a big one. I
love it. Okay, short and sweet, get right to it. So we're gonna talk about that, man. So I'm excited about that.
Big moves, Nate. Black in Sports, man. Where'd your love for sports start?
Yeah, I was talking about with somebody earlier. Just watching and playing video games, watching basketball, playing NBA Live. The draft is happening right now, so like me and my brother used to whenever somebody was getting drafted, write it out on the notepad. What's their height? What's their weight? Put them in the game and then start playing with them. Like basically being those little mini GMs, collecting trading cards with my dad, all of those little moments, and then playing. And then I just playing rec ball, mostly basketball and track and field. But that was where my community came from, where I was most comfortable was in that sports space.
Yeah, as someone that still dabbles in video games, what was your system back in the day?
What system in the game?
we had everything. Sega, Nintendo 64, Nintendo, and then when they got to Dreamcast and PlayStation, that's when me and my brother split. So then he would get one, so my parents would get him his, and then we would get ours on the GameCube, Dreamcast. So we would double up that way.
And what was the games y'all played? What was the I know you talk about the sports part of it, but what were the games that y'all used to get intense on?
Yeah, all the classics. GoldenEye on 64. You had Mario, just as he would make it the farthest. Nintendo was Zelda. So my dad was heavy on Zelda, and I picked up on that. What was that? Yeah, the boxing one. Not Ready to Rumble. That was one. But Fight Nights, Knockout Kings.
Knockout Kings.
Yeah.
Knockout Kings. Yeah.
I love it. No, I know we're gonna get into this, more into the conversation, but it's interesting. You said that you learned a lot of some of your passion and start of love for sports came through video games, and obviously the tech world is growing. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the love for the video games and the tech side, it kind of.
Yeah, how that's an entryway for a lot of youth.
Yeah, it probably stemmed from exposure to that, and being able to see when we were younger, we said that what was that? There was a movie where they went and played a game in front of, they played Mario and competed who could get the highest score.
Yeah, well, Fred Savage from Boy Meets, I can't think of the name of the movie, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
That was ideal. That was a dream. That was not real. But then just having knowing how those systems work, how they connect to the TV, looking at the cartridges and seeing the little ridges on the bottom, just being curious. I was all right, what if I get into this space, or just seeing how those things work and being able to build out the players, create a player, get the stats, Now you have like the scouting reports, and like you're looking at like how they shoot, what's their mid range, what's their close game, can they pass well, do they have defense? Like you're adding those scores and putting those rankings on those players. Like that was just like that entry point.
And I mean, just the evolution of the games, right? Like we were at a time where we saw the growth of the systems and what they could do, and just graphics, right? Like
Mostly the graphics.
just seeing that evolution, and it's great that you kind of have that curiosity. So, who would kind of come out on top most time? You or your brother on the game?
Me, I'm big brother, so it was always me.
I love it. All right, man. So kind of going, jumping, past like the, rec days and, playing around the block and things like that. How did you kind of go on and choose Cincinnati as your college to go to, right? Like being an Ohio kid, there's plenty of, especially if you have a love for sports. So how did Cincinnati kind of become, your ultimate place?
Yeah, so that came about. So I got into the sports side later there. So like I ended up at Cincinnati because they had an engineering program. So I started off in civil engineering. When I was getting close to graduating high school in Cleveland, there was a program called E3, Emerging Ethnic Engineers. So they offered a scholarship for a bunch of Black and brown students to come to the university. And that was basically like, you got a full scholarship to go here.
Right.
Turning that down. But then also like there was I was a big Cincinnati fan. They had the Jordan Jumpman brand. They had Nick Van Exel, who was a lefty like myself. DeMar Johnson, Kenyon Martin's, like seeing those players, the shorts, the shoes they had, like that was the draw.
And I was going to say that, right? That was that time for us where Cincy basketball was like just doing that thing, right? on so many levels, right?
Yep.
The players, the culture, the fashion, just everything. So that does make sense. And you're taking that. Now, does E3 still exist? Are they still doing that program or something similar?
Yeah, I think something similar exists. But yeah, that was a crazy, like amazing program. So, like a lot of my close friends now that are in Cincinnati or in Ohio, like that, it started from there. Like because we had to go there in the summer before school started. So I graduated in June. We started the program in July. We went there until like August and went back home until school started in September. But like even then, it was like we would go to what's called the Armory. So like every day we go to the Armory, play ball, go to class, and then get back to it. So like that was the challenge and competition outside of the classroom on the court still.
So you mentioned track and field, and I don't want to skip over that. What was the events?
So I did everything like up to middle school. So it wasn't like a high level, but it was 100, 200, 400, 800. And then like we did a junior Olympics meet where they had me doing like distance, like 16 and 32. And that was rough.
Now I've heard smarter people run more. So do you attribute your high level of intelligence to your running abilities?
I'll take it.
All day.
I don't do too much running now, but I'll take it from there.
I love it. So it's not funny, it's interesting, right? Like I went on that same path, right? Where like I wanted to be an engineer, and then like I had to make that decision, what engineering schools versus what schools were recruiting me to play football. And then we had GM in Ohio was doing a program as well. Like, so you could go to the GMI Institute and things like that. Yeah. So that time where like, you make that decision. So where did that decision, you go into school for engineering, where did you find that like, oh, like I can be, smart in sports, right? Because like there was kind of growing up that dumb jock thing, are you either smart or you played sports? Yeah. Where did you know that those worlds collided for you?
Yeah, so my first, and I'll probably add a little more color on this one, but like my first job on campus was at the in the rec center. So then like I was able to get a job there, just kind of cleaning up the machines, checking people in, all that basic stuff where you had like swipe IDs. And then through those relationships, I was able to get connected to the manager of ticket operations at the athletic department and started working there. So then it was all the Olympic sports. It was football, basketball, the baseball games, soccer matches, just being there when even at the soccer and baseball, when there was like 10 people paying to get there outside of like your family and friends to get the free tickets, doing the events, the basketball and football, and like working with the donors, working with the season sales team, working with all the alumni, like being responsible for especially then like the free student or the 4 student tickets that each student athlete got, like being super like everybody had to have their name on a list. Like compliance was like super.
Compliance, stay on top of that, right?
On top of that. So, and I guess where I'll go back. So I started off in engineering, ended up changing my major my second year because I wasn't doing great at the engineering piece. Like it was kind of just above. I was singing for a minute, and then ended up changing majors to the College of Business for their marketing program. And then they had an option where you could create a minor. So like my minor at the time, well, I made it was sport management, and they didn't have the program at the time. So then I was able to pick 5 classes, and that became my minor. Like, and that was like, all right, here's where I can build something and pursue something in that business lane where I'm working in the athletic department. I'm going to these marketing classes and quantitative analysis and all that stuff, but I'm also picking like classes that are specifically in that sports space or can kind of help me in that lane. So that's where that all came together.
So what was one of the first things that you learned in that? Because in our podcast, I know there's a lot of people that started with that minor or major, and they ventured out a lot of different ways. So what was some of the first things that you learned that you apply and use now?
I use now probably on the marketing side a little bit, and just kind of I guess going back to working in the athletic department, just seeing in the ticketing space, you get to see how everybody works. So like everybody coming to the game or event has to come through you, whether it's sponsorship, sales, service, legal, compliance. In that case, like everybody's coming to the ticket office because they got to get into the stadium or to the ballpark, whatever, they got to come through you. And just seeing how that operates and kind of seeing the business behind those operations was super insightful, and be able to like take everything I'm learning in the classroom of like doing financial reports and then having to generate that for like we played Memphis and Conference USA at the time. So then like we would run like, this is the attendance report, this is how many tickets we sold, this is how much money was donated, like, and then being able to like piece that together with everything I'm learning in the classroom and then like see it applied in the sports space. That was super helpful.
Nice.
It wasn't all theory at that time. It was like I'm taking everything I'm learning and applying it like right away.
Taking actuals. Yeah, man. So my journey through engineering ended pretty much a certain way too. Vectors is what got me. When I had to go home and it took me 4 hours to solve one problem, I was like, yeah, because
that was it.
this related for me, and I definitely struggled, right? Like, because you coming in taking that load, and but I had practice, and my coaches really didn't care much about practice. I mean, about vectors. I had to have my ass down there on practice sometimes. So that's funny to see that kind of the parallels. Yeah. So you go on to get your MBA in Miami. So you spend some time in the great MIA, Florida.
Yep.
How did you find yourself going to St. Thompson? Sorry about that.
St. Thomas.
So how did you find that university, and how did you make that transition?
Yeah, I wanted to stay in Cincinnati. I wanted to either go to Xavier because they had that sports management program over there, like the graduate program. Yeah. And then, like all my friends were there. Family was nearby in Columbus, so like I wanted to stay home. And then started looking around. So like OU had their program, Barry University down in Miami, NYU was the one I really wanted to get into, and then St. Thomas I got introduced to through one of my mom's coworkers, Dell. So Dell used to work for the MAC conference up in Cleveland. So he was one of the mentors. He went to OU, but kind of knew around like other programs across the country that were like, here's some ones you should consider a look at. And then the thing that they promoted that I enjoyed the most or kind of liked the most, and kind of going back to the application piece, was internships. Like you'll go there, you'll be in class in the evenings, but during the day, your days are wide open. So you can get an internship or you can get a full-time job and then come into class from like 6 to 9 or 6 to 10, 2 or 3 days a week, and then like still get the education. But they were pushing everything of like, go out there and get into the workforce and leverage our alumni. So like they have alumni across the Heat and Dolphins and Marlins and Orange Bowl. Was it Hialeah racetrack down there? So like they had FIU, FAU, University of Miami, like all those properties were down there, beach volleyball. So like they leveraged that heavy, and that's what was like a big draw for me. It was like, I can go here
and get those real world experience, right?
Somewhere, yeah. Or like Cincinnati was limited. It was like Bengals, Reds, and then like I think they had like a minor league hockey team, and like that was it.
Can I jump into the Major League Baseball part of your career a little bit, and how you got into that?
Yeah, so that started it's a great segue from Miami. So one of the company I used to work for down there was is called Complete Ticket Solutions. So essentially, it's like a outsourced box office company. So Orange Bowl committee, I would go there from September through January and like work their business operations on the ticketing side, because like they don't need a full-time staff, but they need to scale up leading into the bowl game. So we would do that for 4 or 5 months. Then right after that, we would go to Baltimore Orioles spring training facility, which was in Fort Lauderdale. So then we would manage that from end of January through April till the season started. So then that was my intro to like working with some of the people that were in Baltimore that would come down to Florida, and then just manage their operations for their spring training facility. So you're meeting some of the executives, you're meeting all the MLB players that are down there because it's a super small facility. So we did that for 2 years. And then like that was my entry into Major League Baseball. And to go back a little bit, the guy that started the Complete Ticket Solutions company was the former director of ticket operations for the Marlins. So I'll tie this into kind of like where we're going for HTX, but basically being able to see somebody leave a team or a league and start their own company and still work with the Orange Bowl and the Orioles and University of Miami, that was kind of eye-opening. I don't think I realized it at the time, but there's very close parallels to like what's happening now compared to like what I was introduced through them and how they started their company.
That's amazing. So yeah, we're in the game part of the conversation. So talking about the career part. So when you got into ticketing, I know it was the experience, right? Because it started off early on in college, like that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
But once you got that exposure, what was the reason to keep you in ticketing? Because if you're talking about your professional like career, your work career, it's been Cincinnati, I'm gonna call them the Indians, the Cleveland Indians, but the Guardians, Baltimore Orioles, and then Houston, right? Like you stayed in that lane. What was it about one, like going into tickets and staying in tickets? Because you mentioned even in college, you got to see the sponsorship department. You worked with boosters and development, and all these other roles. Why did you stay in that ticketing lane? And it seemed just around baseball.
Yeah, stayed in it because it included everything. So it was like always something different, whether it was like working with the sponsorship team or the sales team or community foundation. There was always something new being added to it. And then like being able to get connected across the organization was basically like in a central spot. So then like everybody, either I was going to everybody or everybody was coming to us through the ticketing spot. So like that exposure was super helpful. And then what ended up happening kind of throughout all of these experiences from, well, primarily CTS to the Orioles to Cleveland was this big shift in the ticketing space from like the paper tickets and PDF sheets of paper to digital ticketing. So like Major League Baseball was making a big push on there. And then like out of that kind of same curiosity I had and like how things work, why things work, I was able to lead a couple of those initiatives in Cleveland with the Guardians. And then having that experience and exposure with CTS and like working on a bunch of different ticketing systems and like setting up the scanners and like creating barcodes and then like setting up the Wi-Fi spots, like that all like was a foundation for like, all right, here's how you build it out. That going into the position that in Cleveland, I kind of came in at a position kind of lower than I thought I needed to come in, but it was helpful for like me getting in there and taking off right away because I had some experiences that other people didn't have and like basically running a shop. So then being able to leverage that and then everything with Major League Baseball was doing with Baseball Advanced Media, with their websites, with the digital ticketing stuff, and like being able to be one of the first 4 teams in Major League Baseball that was pushing the ballpark app, that was huge. And there was a ton of value in that for me.
And that's what's just so amazing, right? Why we just definitely go from ticketing to tech, right?
Yep.
Is because we went through another evolution, right? Like there's so many people when I've worked in sponsorships or just been around sports, hated that transition, right? Like to even bet to say like, you know what, we're going to do this. And a lot of people had a lot of reasons. I think one of the business case reasons was it cut costs, right? Like you had a heavy maybe front end expenditure with getting the systems, coding the programs and things like that. But after you got a part of the front end, it saved you in the back end. So like you were a part of some of those conversations, and it happened to work to where now everybody does a digital ticket. But how was some of those conversations where you, even though you were a part of it, were you like, man, this shit ain't gonna work, man? Like, like how was that?
Yeah, no, it was tough, especially in baseball. It's the old boy, like
Tradition,
your
pastime.
traditional collectible tickets. Like everybody wants to put it in the sleeve and hold on to it, and say I took my son or daughter or grandkid to this game and have that piece of paper. So convincing them was hard. So convincing them was hard, and then also internally convincing everybody else that works in those other departments and on the ticketing side that this will work was a whole nother challenge, because you got to convince everybody internally so they can sell it to all their clients and partners externally. Yeah, that was tough. And then year one, moving through that, we had to you got to educate on everybody on how it works and why we're making this move. So then you have people that are resistant to doing it, and then just don't want to do it because they might, at that time, this is 2011. Some people still have a flip phone, and they're going to use that excuse of to transfer over. So it's you got to navigate all that stuff, and then being able to transfer tickets. I'll jump into some of the benefits that you leaned into, but the challenges were there in the house and then outside the house from everybody.
Yeah, because everybody's first thing with as far as will call, I'm gonna hit up will call.
Right.
It's the transition from that. Shoot, I know my dad still asks me about will call.
Right here.
We passed that, Pop. But baseball, and I'm glad you mentioned baseball. And I have a little background in the football, and I see what our ticket ops team has to go through.
Yeah.
That's the 16, or 17 regular season games, and
Right.
throw in a couple playoff games and preseason games. So you're looking at 20 games, but baseball is 160, 80 something home games. So I guess talk about just the grind a little bit for that.
Yeah, no, it's 81 home games, 83 here in Houston because they played the last two spring training games at the ballpark as a warm up. But yeah, it's 81 games, and you have your season ticket holders out of 40,000 people. You might have 10, 15,000 that are season ticket holders. So they're getting the information, they're used to using it, and then you have 25,000, 30,000 other people that are coming to the game maybe once a year, and you're having to educate them every day for a 7-game homestand or a 10-game homestand. You're having the same conversations with another person. You got to remember, this is their first time using it, or their first time here, or they're coming from Chicago or Kansas City or somewhere that's in the division. They don't know how it works. So you got to be patient with them and educate them. And also the other side of that is the box office people. So you have to help them be kind of patient with the customer, because they're getting frustrated because it's new for them on the box office side, new for the customer. And you got to be that even keel middle person to de-escalate some of the situations of what you said, will call, or somebody said they left my tickets at will call and they're not here. And then you got to call them, or they didn't drop them off, and then get into the benefits that EJ mentioned of now you can just transfer it or recall the ticket. It's they send it to this email address that was the wrong one or an old one that I don't have anymore. It's just recall it and send it to this new one. So those are some of the benefits of being able to navigate those conversations where we weren't able to do that before.
Now, so I got to see it, but do you still wear the ring from your days at the Rocket? Astro, excuse me.
I still have it. I rarely bring it out. It's it's back here. I can I only bring it out. I'll take it to a conference maybe, and then or a panel discussion, and I'll bring it there. And usually I'll just have it in my pocket and then bring it out. But to wear it is it's that big. I got small fingers, long fingers but small hands, but it's too big. But that was a crazy experience of because I left the Cleveland Guardians in 2015 when they went to go play the Cubs in the World Series. So I thought so back when I was at the Guardians, I thought I missed the Cubs Guardians World Series in 2015, and then ended up coming down to Houston where they lost in 2016 to the Royals, and then next year we made it to the World Series. So then being able to be a part of that was amazing. That's one of those once in a lifetime type of things that ended up being the Astros have been on a run since 2017, and getting to the World Series or getting close every year, and then being able to include family and friends in that. So friends that I work with that came down for games, or family, I was able to get my mom and dad, my brother here for World Series games. Those are memorable moments that you can't pay for those.
Nice. All right, man. So I want to jump into it. So I'm going to let you do the natural transition, right? Because you were working with the city of Houston, as an innovation advisor, right? That was part of your transition is you were doing work with them before when you were at the Rockets, man. You've always invested, helped, community side, things like that. Even, we both have been, leaders and Black sports professionals and just kind of helping out there. So how was the work with that? And then how did you make the transition? And we want to jump into to your company, HTX.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that you alluded to earlier was like the grind of baseball. Like it's a super long season from March through October, November. If you go postseason, I was missing a bunch of like friends events, family events, and or just like vacation time. So like you're at the ballpark all day, every day. And then wanted to find some flexibility or freedom within that. So then there was an opportunity to do the same work I was doing once I got out of the ticketing space, and basically was like a advisor for the Astros IT team. So all the work that I was doing there, basically project management. So data analysis, project management, implementation of like either hardware or software with every department at the organization. Was able to transfer that into the work with the mayor's office. So then that was working with, instead of doing retail concessions, stadium operations, it turned into like public works, solid waste, parks and rec, finance, accounting with the city of Houston. And what that gave me was like that very Monday through Friday 9 to 5 box that I never had, or you don't get in sports. So that was one that made a bunch of time available. And then I was able to get back home a lot more often, and visit and like go see my friends and family and be a part of those events there that I felt I was missing out on for a while. But at the same time, I wanted to stay in the sports space. So I was trying to figure out like, how does that happen? Like, how do I leave here and then like create something that is a continuation or extension of what I was doing before? And that turned into HTX. So coincidentally, my partner, Chris Garcia, so I left first week of April from the Astros. I told him I was leaving. He was like, funny, I'm leaving. I just put in my 2 weeks. So then he was gone by like the end of April, that same time period. But me and him, I started working together on a bunch of stuff. So he was a creative director at the Astros. I was on the strategy and operations side, but we did a lot of stuff jointly together. Like if he was working on a postseason campaign and was looking for something new that they could do for like the street festival, he was tasked with like coming up with that. And then I would have companies, I think there was a company called like Dash out of Portland that was doing like these domes where like on the outside it could look like a baseball, and then inside you could do like some AR, VR activations. You could have merchandise in there. Just do something other than like a tent on the street. So then I was like, how would you use this, or could you use this kind of thing? So we would have like conversations around that stuff like all the time. And then that turned into like, what does this look like outside of the Astros? So like we have these relationships, we have this expertise, we have these ideas that before we had to pitch them to our CIO or the VP of marketing or get approval for somebody in the organization. Like now we have like kind of free, like if we have an idea and we have a network and we have an opportunity to plug it in somewhere, it's like, let's see if we can make it happen. That's where HTX came from. So it was me, Chris, my guy Ash. So then I'll explain the name HTX a little bit. Obviously, it's Houston, Texas, but then it's
which I always thought it was.
There's also like the three areas of sports and tech that we want to focus on. So human performance, technology management, and experiences. So like, what are the three things in those categories for the athlete, for the executive, and for the fan that we can build something around? So that's kind of where the name comes from, or that is where the name comes from. And then like the logo even kind of implements elements of Texas, where like it's an inner loop and an outer loop, a circle like a power button, like an Xbox. The colors are like an Intel, like a cool blue. And then like turning on sports tech is kind of like the motto that we had initially of like pushing the power button, turn on the Xbox, you see it light up. That's what that was. And like the inner loop and outer loop for the highways around Houston. That was like the original kind of concept behind the logo.
That's the whole stuff all the way around. And then just when they said that boy got his own money.
I'm interested in the experiences part, right? Because you mentioned a lot of different, avenues and what from a customer to an athlete to, there's a lot of different experiences in sports. So how do you kind of gauge the experiences and make it real life for all those different parties?
Yeah, it kind of came to life for the executive side. That was like more like software stuff. That was stuff we were doing with the Astros, with the Guardians, of like what things make their job easier, what helps them save money, what improves the process, and just like makes things smooth. For the athlete, it was more of like, or it is more of, what are the things that help them improve their performance? Whether it's like additional data that they can get on, like, all right, I need more sleep, or if I do these things and kind of consume different foods for nutrition, this is going to help me perform better. This is going to help me get more money down the road. And if it's a college athlete, this is going to give me a competitive advantage and or help me get recruited somewhere and kind of get a leg up on the competition. To your question, like, I think for the experience side, that's for the fan, is like, that's kind of where it's wide open. And that can be like AI chat services, that can be like VR headsets with like Meta and Apple Vision now. Like, and kind of where that's going is going to be crazy. And then that includes like sports betting, that includes everything, like how fans engage and interact with their favorite athlete, with their favorite team, with their university, with their kids, if it's Huddle or a Catapult or Teamworks. Like, those are the platforms that kind of dictate the experience. And then like being able to, especially on the kid side, like Dick's Sporting Goods, they have that app called Game Changer now, so you can like watch your kid's baseball game, or like send it to your uncle or your grandparent. Like, they can't be there for the game, but they can stream it and watch it now, and like be able to track the stats. So like, those are the things that are out there that help improve that experience for the consumer.
Now, you talk about all these things, which kind of brings me to my question is, one of the goals, or I don't know if you want to say it's a mission, is to be, a thought leader.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot to be a thought leader. What are the things that you're doing to position yourself to be one of those, to where you're getting asked to come speak at, various kind of conferences and things like that? And you're one of the first people I called when I had to pick up the phone and kind of like, yo, man, break some of this down for me. What is that like work, and what's the challenges that you find, becoming a thought leader in a space?
Yeah, the challenges is like, especially now, it's like everything's changing so quickly and so much, whether it's locally and in terms of like nationally or globally. And with the number of sports that are either taking off, like pickleball and paddle, now you have cricket growing here, you have rugby expanding here, and then obviously your traditional 4 or 5 with hockey, baseball, basketball, football, and soccer. Like, those are the ones that are like taking off, and it's keeping up with everything. And in terms of like, if it is in the sports betting side, that's one whole completely different lane from the AR VR experience to experiential side, to the AI chat services that companies and teams are using, like supplement customer service pieces, to the wearables, like your Aura rings, your Whoops, your Catapults, all those platforms. Like, and it's kind of staying on top of all of those as much as you can. And finding like sources, like my go-to sources are like the Sporticos and Front Office Sports and Sports Tech X and Drake Starr's industry report, like seeing what are the trends on the mergers and acquisitions and investment side. And those are probably, that one's probably like the most helpful to know where people are putting their money in terms of like what's going to be next, because they're going to invest their money, make sure it works, but then also put their money in things that are going to be successful for the long term.
Now, some reports are showing that like the investment side of things are slowing down. Not majorly, but it's slowing down, and people are really more looking into the mergers and acquisitions, the M&As of things.
Yeah.
How long do you think that trend's going to last, or what do you think is causing that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what's causing it, I'll start with that one, is kind of more of a guarantee. It's less risky. If you're doing a merger on something that already exists or works, you already know what it looks like.
Gotcha, okay.
If you're investing in an early stage startup that's like pre-seed or seed, like trying to get it there, get off the ground, you don't know if it's going to work, or kind of, it may look like a good idea, or it might not be the right time for it, or they might not be the right founders to invest in. But if you're doing an acquisition of something, then it's like, this already works. It's proven. They got a ton of users. They're generating revenue. Has some traction. Those are the things that are already indicators of like, if I put my money here, I'm good.
Gotcha.
So as a black man in the tech space, and when we hear tech, sometimes it could be, at least for me, I'm going to speak for myself, it's like, damn. But what's kind of some of the pathways and entryways that you see emerging from some of our future tech leaders?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's being or starting to become like outside of the university setting, to where like kids in middle school, high school, and or if they're in college now, have access to a bunch of stuff, whether it's Google University or certificate programs, They can do the data science stuff. They can learn the coding. They can do project management, and then they can also like create something, and like without at a very low cost. Like they can work with a local high school or AEU team or spin up a business, like go and work and support their friend. If like their friend runs track or plays basketball, they can build up his marketing and manage his social and like build a business around that and start to help with managing the money for him and like put all that stuff together and do that at a super young age, especially with like all the NIL stuff on the college level and then in some states where it's legal on the high school level. And I think it's just, to your question, I think it's just like access. And one, it's exposure through the tech, but then it's also like easy access to create that stuff and be able to try stuff and see what works and doesn't work at a very low cost.
So how important are events like Afrotech, right? Like, or just kind of that whole mission or kind of thing that they've created or space they created?
Yeah, that space is huge. So they moved to Houston last year. They'll be here again this October. But being in those conversations, so we had a chance to participate in a panel or lead a panel last year in Austin, or 2 years ago in Austin, around sports tech and investment. So that was me, Natera Branch, that used to be with the NFL, and Ashley DeWalt with the investment fund, The Collective. And it was cool for a number of reasons. One, it was like there's a bunch of tech people there that are like experts or thought leaders in their own right in their space, whether it's like cybersecurity or coding or science, or whatever. But they never looked at like sports as an avenue for them. And they may work for an Intel or Microsoft, and those companies are heavily involved in the sports space, but didn't necessarily see like a connection there. And I think that also kind of goes to MH's question of like, what's the pipeline for that? Or kind of what's the funnel for people to get involved in that? Like, I think you can go that super technical route and work for one of those tech companies and then pivot into the sports space, or you can go to the sports space and like complement or add in the tech side. And I think that's opening up pretty wide open. But like those conversations and that network and community you build at an Afrotech is huge. And just in terms of like what's possible.
That's amazing. All right. Hey, MH, you ready? We're going to go ahead and hit him with that third and long.
Yeah, Nate, some quick hitting questions for our guests, for our listeners to learn you better. So first thing you do when you wake up?
First thing I do, usually it's a prayer, and then I'll go work out or take the dog for a walk.
What's one of your nicknames?
Nicknames? Nate Dogg is the main one. You got Nate Dogg and Warren G, regulators.
I love it.
Mount up.
Favorite childhood TV show?
I'll stick with the sports team, Pro Stars, with like Wayne Gretzky, Bo Jackson, and MJ.
Man, that is a classic, man.
That's an absolute
We got to clip that. Clip that one. I'm interested in it. So trends that are happening now that you just don't understand or you don't get. What is a trend that you don't get?
A trend that I don't get? In terms of like the sports and tech space?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that one I'm not sure. Could be some of the sports betting stuff. I think I understand it, but like as how big it is or why it's so big, I don't necessarily get. Like it's the one that I'm looking forward to also is like the VR spot of like how you leverage that in terms of like the headsets are like super expensive now. But if they get down in cost, if you can sell like courtside seats for a Rockets game, you don't have limits on capacity. Like you don't have only 100. You can sell 1,000 or 100,000 courtside type of view seats for $20. Then like you just kind of your revenue just shot up without having to be at the stadium. Like drive down. I don't have to drive from like Sugarland to downtown Houston. Go somewhere and park. Worry about walking in. I can do it from the comforts of home and have like surround sound set up and like get the close view. Just curious about like how those kind of mature over the next year.
I love it. Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Last one, Apple or Android?
Apple. Apple everything. The laptop, the iPhone, everything.
Come on. You got to get my man EJ right there.
I feel attacked every episode. Anyway, let's jump into the winner's circle. This is where we talk, just give you the platform and talk about, the many amazing things you do. And And then I want to start off with the conference, right? So the MLC, you give me a lot of acronyms, which is so tech shit, right? Like tech don't spell shit. Like it's all about acronyms. But anyway, please let's talk about the MLC Connect Conference, man. And congratulations. This is going to be your 10th year for the conference. So definitely hand clap on that. But just let's just start with what the conference is about and the genesis of it.
The genesis. So like my partner Chris that I mentioned before, CDG is to lean into the acronyms. That's we call him CDG. So he started the conference in 2015. So it was for creatives initially. So the MLC is Major Level Creative, and that's the name of his agency. But he was looking to create a space for the graphic designers, photographers, videographers. You had your sports business journals, you had National Sales Forum, you had MIT Sloan, but nothing was out there for people on the creative side of the business. So he created that for them then, and then basically every year, conceptually takes it to a new ballpark or stadium every year. So last year we were in Detroit at Ford Field, the year before that at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, and then this year it'll be in Miami at Lone Depot, home of the Marlins. But essentially what it is 3 days of conference. Day 1 is an opening night mixer. Day 2 and 3 are actual conference days from, we'll say 9 to 4. And then at the end of each of those days, there's a unique mixer experience. So it's called the Creative Athlete. The concept behind there is like, you want to be able to be in this professional development settings and like hear from people that are the experts and kind of thought leaders in their spaces, but then also like you want to connect and build this community with people and do it through some athletic avenue. So last year we did a 3-on-3 tournament and shoot around at the Pistons practice facility. This year it'll be at Unrivaled because they're down in Miami, so we'll be able to use their space. So it'll be 3-on-3 shoot around, and then also there'll be a logo versus logo contest. So like all the professional creatives, they'll jump in Photoshop. Everybody in the audience, they'll have to draw a topic, and they'll get 10 minutes to go head to head. So say it's me and you, MH, like we got 10 minutes to like do a logo. It's up on the big screen, and everybody's seeing like what we're doing, how we're putting it together. And then tournament style, you get down to the championship. So it's like something that's creative and kind of models like an NCAA tournament or competitive type environment. But it's essentially around like building community. So like, and to go back a little bit, so it's 2 tracks this year. So it's the creative track.
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
innovation
talk about
track.
the tracks.
Yeah. So it's the creative track are for those people that I mentioned before on the creative side of the business, and then the innovation side is everybody that's on the business operations, strategy, sustainability, DEI, fan engagement, sports betting, player development side. So everybody that's kind of creating on the back end or behind the scenes, and kind of how they come up with those ideas, why they approach their business the way they do. And then this year it'll be so we'll have like the CEO from Drakestar will kind of come in and talk about the private equity venture capital trends that are happening in the industry. Brian Michael Cooper with Greenberg Traurig, he's their counsel with that law firm, but he used to be the president for the XFL Houston Roughnecks, used to run the NBA G League team Rio Grande Valley Vipers, done a bunch of deals with I think it was like Better and Jake Paul on that establishment. So like they'll have a conversation around what that looks like. We'll have Sean Holcomb Jones from the USTA talking about like what they're doing on the tennis side and kind of what's different on the diversity, equity, inclusion space in tennis. So it'll be like a range of different conversations where like, and some of those conferences I mentioned before, like usually they're topical where like there's a theme around like either sustainability or it's analytics or it's sales. Everybody gets a chance to hear from different people that are in different spaces. So then it's like, cool, I might hear something about sustainability that I didn't know that I can take back to my agency or my organization. Or I might learn something about sports betting on the analytics side that I can take back and apply here. And there's a way to get everybody together and be able to take it and do it at a cool venue, which is like a major league sports, either stadium or ballpark. And then especially with it being in Miami this year, it's a great place to be. Weather's going to be great. We have the ballpark. We'll do day 1, we'll do a sunset mixer on South Beach at the Moxie. We'll have the Unrivaled experience. So it's like getting people into the city and not tying them to the ballpark, but be able to get out and explore also.
And I'm sure the conference with a lot of those creatives that are there and innovators, I mean, there's probably some big expectation about just how do I feel coming into the conference or what experiences I have. How do you keep up engaging, their excitement year by year?
Yeah, that's been the fun part. I think I think the way I approach it, which is like kind of telling for like personalities, like it's relatively intimate. So like on the Connect side or creative side, they've been around. They've been doing that for the last 9 years. So they have a great audience across the country. So they usually hit like 300, 400 people. On our side, it's usually in that 50, 75, and we're pushing for 100 this year. But it's like being able to keep it tight and intimate and be able to have like while you're there for those 2 or 3 days, develop relationships where like it's not like you have 1,000 people like just passing business cards or like waiting in line to talk to somebody and like you're just jumping around doing those LinkedIn exchange. Whereas like you're there for 2 or 3 days, it's a close community or becomes a community, and then it's like we're doing all these different experiences that everybody can enjoy together, and keeping it fresh is the other thing. So like being able to move it around from Detroit to Nashville to Houston or Miami in this case, that also helps kind of keep it fresh. Where you're not going to the same city, you're going to the Pistons facility, you're going to Ford Field. In Nashville, we did the opening night mixer was at the Nashville Sounds, the minor league ballpark. So they have like putt out there. We were able to do like on-field BP. They have a bar out there. So like it's being able to take people like you're in the city, you may not have been here before, be able to get out and explore and enjoy the city also.
Have different access to it, right? That's amazing. Yeah. All right, so talk to us about like the future of this, right? Like how it's expanding, you know, different partnerships maybe you're looking for, and then even like the innovation hub spot of it, right? Like if that's going to be a part of the progress.
Yeah. I think partnerships is one has been like a big opportunity. So like we've had Adobe be a partner with obviously with their like InDesign and Photoshop and
that, yeah.
And they have like that's a kind of match made in heaven. And then they do the analytics side also. So like they do a lot of like fan engagement and research and CRM systems that they have that they probably don't promote as much, but they have the systems in place. The law firms that are kind of also managing a lot of these M&A acquisition investment deals, being able to get them tapped in, other investors, other startups that are building products. We're like, if they're looking for connectivity with somebody at the Marlins, in this case, that works in like player development, we'll have like their data science people or their business applications team there. So then it's, if you don't know who to get in touch with, or you don't have the network, they're right here. So like they're there, they're sharing their expertise, they're sharing their what they're doing, why they're doing, how they're doing it. And then where it's going, I think the expansion is like, I think we'll always have the annual conference. It'll be more of like quarterly meetups. So like being able to go into different markets, whether it's Denver or Phoenix or Boston or Cleveland, and then like do quarterly meetups or Vegas, and be able to do these smaller meetups. Like, so we did it in Chicago back in March. So we did a meetup up there and had people from like the Bulls and Sky and Bears and Blackhawks and Riddle, and just be able in Big Ten and be able to have them like come together. We did that at the Metropolitan in Willis Tower, or the old Sears Tower. So like they had in that social club, they have like a golf course called virtual tee thing called 5 Iron, the golf. So we like, they had the bar, we had food, people could hit, and like just be able to connect those people in a cool space where like you're 67 floors up looking over Chicago, but like you're bringing people together across teams that hadn't had a chance to connect yet because of like everybody's season is all over the place. So doing more of that in different markets. And then we can use that as like site visits. So like if we go to Chicago or Vegas, we can use that as like one, building the community, but then also like, all right, what venues are here that we would want to host us here and like entertain that.
That's nice. Love that. All right. So just want to jump into it because to make sure we don't, we'd be remiss to not talk about it, but the future of sports, right? Like that's the nonprofit side of things. So just kind of, share how that, started. I think it was 2023, when I guess it was official. But talk to us about that.
Yeah, that was kind of what you touched on earlier, that civic community engagement that we've always been like involved in, like whether it's volunteering for stuff through YMCA, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, BSP, wanting to give back or be a part of that growth of the game, we'll say. In the future of sport, that was our spin on that in terms of like also not having to jump through the hoops and kind of get approval from people of like, if we want to do something with one of the NBA teams foundations or the MLB teams foundations, and like you got to go through their executive director and get approval for these things, is like, or we can just go directly to a school and create a program and run it. So we were able to do that earlier this year in January through March with a school called Legacy. So Legacy is a School of Sports Sciences is the full name. So it was founded by Dr. Carrie Patterson Brown and her husband Reggie, who used to play for, I think it was the Eagles, but they both played sports at Texas A&M. So they started their school around preparing kids for careers in the sports industry, whether it's on the field or off the field, coaching, administration, business, journalism, creative, what have you. So they started a school, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago now. That's one, they pump out like very high talent athletes. Like their basketball program is one of the best in the state. Baseball program does well. The softball and soccer teams did really well. But we were able to do a program called Next Play. So the focus was that around like basically like a mini accelerator or incubator. Like if you have an idea for a product or service in sports, how would you create it? How do you figure out your target audience? How do you market it? How do you design it? And then we would go through, it was an 8-week program and just kind of going through those modules and building out that curriculum. So it was, again, a small group, 8, 9 students that are juniors and seniors in high school that are going through and like, I have an idea, like I play golf. How would I either like embed an RFID chip on a golf ball and track it? And then that idea turned from like tracking it to like more performance measurement. Like, all right, if I do that, and I set up my iPhone to go back to EJ, if I set up my iPhone and record it, then like, how can I use that for performance instead of just me tracking a ball, how can I help with my swing? How can I like use that computer vision that's on the smartphone to track, like, am I overcompensating? Am I slicing it? Is my swing off? And then like use that and like build out a product or service for that. And then like we take them through like, what's your business model? Would you be like B2B or B2C? How would you raise money for it? What merchandise would you create around that? So then like it's getting them going through, like they see the Nikes, they see the Adidas, they see the catapults, but then like, again, like then put it into the application of like, all right, if I have an idea for this, how would I create it? And like, what are all the things that go into making that a viable, legitimate business?
That's an amazing experience for them to get, man. Like just the overall excited to continue to see the growth of that. So the 3 pillars are just something I saw. Just you want like what? Empowering innovation, advancing equity, and what was shaping tomorrow's game, right?
Yeah.
All great stuff, but the one I want to focus on is like advancing equity, right? Like, is it, that equity and equality thing, right? It seems like we're always striving. I mean, this is Black in Sports. We're always striving to get that. How important is that piece, and how is the program doing that, right? Like, are you looking at certain schools in certain sectors? Like, just kind of walk us through how, if that's one of your 3 pillars, and I may have made that up, how are you focusing on that?
Yeah, no, the equity piece is huge. I think it's one, traditional equity in terms of like having the access to resources that are kind of level and or kind of getting them to a place where it feels like somewhat level, but then also equity in terms of like ownership is kind of where we focus, especially on that Next Play initiative of like, yeah, you can go work for a team, league, agency, startup, and or you can build your own, and like being able to own that IP. And like I think that's the heavier equity piece that we kind of want to play. And like you can build this potentially $1 million idea and then license it out and or sell it and then like go and do something else. And then the equity side, as far as like access, I think it's very much to your point of like picking out certain schools that are open to it. And like Legacy is one of those schools. There's a couple other markets like in Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, and Miami that I want to like take that program to. But it's very kind of focused on like schools and people that get it and have the leeway to make that happen without having to jump through all the hoops.
Man, we got to get you connected. There's a school here. It's called Slam Academy. I think they're actually in Miami as well. Mr. World Ride is part of that, his school. But it's a school based on sports business, and they have pretty good athletes that come out of there too. But no, I just think it's outstanding, particularly to take the creative mind of youth and to kind of mold it into something that's functional for them. I think I don't really have a question. I'm just more in awe and like, man, that's an outstanding piece of work for sure.
Yeah,
and I'll piggyback on MH's statement from the fact of just hearing you say that to build your own, like that means so much. And like for them to understand that they can do that, not only are you a testament, like, we all talk about it, right? Well, not we all, but a lot of us understand, like, man, I love the career path or the job that I'm doing. It does bring a semblance of joy, although having your own, that that's a whole nother level, man.
Yeah, right.
And to hear you say that and to provide that viewpoint for these kids is something that we didn't have, and it's just going to really take us to like that next level.
Yeah.
All right, man. So hey, jumping into we call this portion the assist. This is where you get to drop a jewel, a nugget, maybe words to live by, or something you would tell your younger self, but just a quick quotable to share with our audience.
Quick quotable. I guess younger self would probably be like kind of stay curious, to kind of lean on that statement that we mentioned before. I think I always like looked at how things work, especially like in the engineering aspect of like how things work, how they're built, why they're built the way they are, and like gaining and understanding like why they are that way. And I think leaning into that earlier to like that point of like what you just said, like if I would have been able to do that, or kind of had somebody push me in that way a little bit more in the middle school, high school, things would be different, but that would have helped kind of like just be more open, like exploring a little bit, and that would have been cool.
Absolutely. All right, really quick, man. We're going to put these in the show notes, but if you want for our audio listeners, just to tell you where they can follow you, find more. So give me those socials or websites or whatever you want to share. We did the pre-show work, so I'll put all of that in the show notes, but for our audio listeners.
Yeah. Personal LinkedIn is just my name, Nate Thompson. Same on IG and Twitter. Just use my name, and then HTX Sports Tech is across LinkedIn, IG, and X.com.
There it is. All right, MH, hit us with those final thoughts, man.
Hey, one thought, man. Shout out to you for turning NBA Live into this creative space. Me and my brothers, we stopped that. We stopped that PS2 and Xbox. But I salute to you for turning, man. I really appreciate your flexibility on the time. But man,
Sure.
Learned so much in this quick talk, and I hope we can talk some more. And I'm a big fan of your work and continue to support everything that you're doing, man. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pleasure to be here with y'all. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to continue to thanks, man. Thanks, Nate, man. Good friend. And like I said, just early on, some people just move different, and you may not get it until it blooms. But appreciate what you're doing, not only for yourself, for the culture, and not just the culture of sports, right? I believe this is why we do this show, is to take it from ticketing to tech, right? Like to know that get in there, following some passions and collective and connecting with people. I think that's what's one of the great parts of the show is for, our audience and our listeners to be able to connect with people that don't always take a traditional path. So any last words for you before I kind of close us out?
Appreciate y'all for having me. It was a great conversation. Yeah, and definitely want to do more of it.
Let's do it. All right. Well, thanks, Nate, for your time again, man. I hope you, the people, enjoyed this show. A lot of nuggets. Please follow. Maybe check out the conference if you're in that role. That's coming up in July, annually in the July space. So I believe this one starts the 14th, but we'll have that in the show notes as well. And new shows are dropping every Thursday. So please subscribe to our YouTube, because if you see it, you can be it. And then we're everywhere and anywhere you listen to podcasts. And like we always say, please stay safe, practice gratitude, and know we're rooting for you.
Screaming, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment until we even.
Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Yeah. Yeah. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Look. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. Spent about 2 racks on handmade new rags. Assuming I'm rooting for everybody that's black. That's everybody from sports to college class to rap.